Commander Kethara returns from combat operation with her armor in critical condition. The mission was success. Hostile forces neutralized, strategic objectives achieved, her unit returning with minimal casualties despite fierce resistance. But the combat took severe toll on Kethara's personal protective equipment. Her armor shows extensive damage across multiple systems. The torso plating has fractures radiating from impact point where enemy weapons struck. Not catastrophic breach, but structural compromise that weakens the armor's protective capability significantly. The environmental seals around the helmet interface are scorched and partially melted from exposure to chemical weapon that her unit encountered. The seals held long enough to protect her, but they're no longer reliable for future operations. The left shoulder assembly has actual breach, gap in the plating where fragment penetrated, exposing the underlying suit and creating vulnerability that could be exploited in future combat. The damage is obvious to anyone with technical knowledge of armor systems. This isn't minor wear requiring routine maintenance. This is critical compromise requiring extensive repair work before the armor can be considered combat-ready again. Standard military protocol for damage this severe. Full engineering team performs the repairs. Multiple technicians working simultaneously to address the various structural compromises, coordinating their efforts to ensure that fixing one problem doesn't create cascade failures in connected systems. The armor is too complex, and the damage too extensive for single technician to handle safely and efficiently. Kethara arrives at the Alliance Military Facilities Maintenance Section, dedicated workspace where armor repairs are performed for personnel from multiple species serving in the joint military operations. The facility is staffed by a mix of Thessari engineers and human contractors, all specialized in the complex work of maintaining powered combat armor systems. When she enters the maintenance bay, the duty engineering team assembles automatically. Standard response when senior officer arrives with damaged equipment requiring immediate attention. The team consists of 5 Thessari specialists who handle most of the facility's armor work, plus 2 human contractors who provide expertise on systems that Thessari engineers are less familiar with. The chief engineer, a Thessari veteran named Vethros who has been maintaining combat armor for 20 years, immediately begins assessing the damage. His expression shows professional concern as he examines the fractured plating, the scorched seals, the shoulder breach. Commander Kethara, this is severe damage requiring coordinated team repair. Vethros states with the directness that military technical personnel use when assessing equipment problems. We'll need to remove multiple armor sections simultaneously to prevent structural stress during the repair process. I recommend my full team working together. Estimated repair time approximately 90 minutes with full coordination. Kethara looks at the assembled engineering team. 7 technicians ready to begin work, following standard protocol for damage this extensive, prepared to execute the coordinated repair that Vethros described. Then she makes unexpected decision. Her hand moves in sharp, final gesture, the kind of command signal that military personnel recognize instantly as non-negotiable order requiring immediate compliance. Everyone step back, Kethara commands with voice that carries absolute authority. Clear the workspace, all of you except. She pauses, her eyes scanning the assembled team with deliberate assessment until they settle on one specific person. Except David Chen, he stays. The rest of you are dismissed from this repair operation. The reaction from the engineering team is immediate confusion mixed with professional concern. Vethros's skin shows questioning purple as he processes this departure from standard protocol. Commander, with respect, the damage requires coordinated team effort, Vethros protests carefully. Multiple structural compromises need simultaneous attention to prevent cascading failures during the repair process. The torso plating fractures could extend if we remove sections sequentially rather than supporting the structure from multiple points. The environmental seals need to be replaced in coordinated sequence to maintain system integrity. One technician cannot safely handle repairs of this complexity. David Chen can, Kethara interrupts with absolute certainty. And he will, the rest of you are dismissed. That's a direct order from your commanding officer, clear the workspace immediately. Military discipline overrides Vethros's professional objections. When senior combat officer gives direct order, technical personnel comply regardless of their assessment of the situation. The engineering team begins filing out of the maintenance bay, showing various combinations of confusion, concern, and reluctant acceptance. Vethros lingers for a moment longer. Commander, I feel obligated to note for the record that this deviates from established safety protocols for armor repair operations of this severity. If complications arise, then David Chen will handle them, Kethara says firmly. Your objection is noted. You're dismissed, Chief Engineer. Vethros leaves, joining the rest of the team outside the maintenance bay. The large workspace, designed to accommodate multiple simultaneous repair operations, is now occupied by only 2 people. Commander Kethara in her severely damaged armor and David Chen, human maintenance technician. David stands quietly, waiting for Kethara to provide additional direction. He's surprised by her decision to dismiss the entire engineering team, but he's also beginning to understand why she made that choice. David Chen is human maintenance technician who has been working at the Alliance military facility for 18 months. His specialty is armor systems repair, the complex technical work of maintaining powered combat armor across the multiple species that serve in Alliance military operations. He's developed solid professional reputation during his time at the facility. Competent technical work, careful attention to detail, reliable completion of assigned repairs. Nothing that makes him stand out as exceptional compared to other skilled technicians, but consistent quality that earns respect from the personnel who depend on his work. But David has one characteristic that distinguishes his approach from most other armor technicians: how he handles repairs that require working in close proximity to the armor's wearer. Some armor damage cannot be properly repaired unless the armor is being worn. The powered systems are calibrated to the specific wearer's body. Certain structural elements only align correctly when the armor is positioned on someone. Specific repairs require accessing components that can only be reached when the suit is occupied. This means armor technicians sometimes need to work very close to the personnel wearing the damaged equipment, reaching around them, positioning themselves in their personal space, performing repairs that require sustained proximity and physical contact with the armor while someone is inside it. Most technicians approach this as purely technical challenge. They perform the necessary work as efficiently as possible, minimizing the time spent in close proximity, treating the wearer as component of the system being repaired rather than as person experiencing the interaction. David approaches it differently. He treats proximity work as requiring explicit consent and continuous communication. Before beginning repairs that will require close work, he explains exactly what he'll need to do, how long it will take, what the wearer will experience. During the repair, he maintains constant narration, announcing each movement before he makes it, explaining what the wearer will feel, giving them complete awareness and control over the process. This approach takes longer than just working efficiently without communication. But it creates very different experience for the person wearing the armor. They're not subjected to proximity and touch without warning. They're active participants who know what's happening and what to expect. 6 months ago, David performed armor repair for Commander Kethara after training exercise resulted in minor damage to her equipment. That previous repair 6 months ago was David's first direct interaction with Commander Kethara. He knew her by reputation. Legendary Thessari warrior, tactical brilliance, absolute personal boundaries that made her notorious for rejecting any unnecessary physical proximity. The damage from the training exercise was relatively minor, malfunctioning joint actuator in the right arm assembly that needed replacement. But the actuator couldn't be properly accessed unless the armor was being worn, which meant David would need to work close to Kethara to perform the repair. When David explained the repair requirements, he also explained his approach. Commander, this repair will require me to work in your personal space for approximately 30 minutes. I'll need to reach around your right side to access the actuator assembly. I want to be clear about what that means and get your explicit consent before proceeding. I'll announce every movement before I make it, David continued. I won't touch the armor without warning you what I'm about to do. If at any point you need me to stop or step back, just say so and I'll comply immediately. The repair will take longer this way than if I just worked efficiently without communication. But I'd rather do it slowly and respectfully than quickly in ways that make you uncomfortable. Kethara had been surprised by this approach. Most technicians either didn't ask for consent. They just performed necessary repairs, assuming that military personnel would tolerate whatever proximity the work required. Or they asked perfunctory permission, without actually explaining what the proximity would entail or offering real control over the process. David's offer was different: genuine consent, complete transparency about what she would experience, real control including ability to stop the process if it became intolerable. She agreed to proceed, though her initial posture was extremely defensive, ready to reject the contact if it crossed boundaries she couldn't accept. David had performed the repair exactly as he described. Constant narration. "I'm reaching toward the actuator housing now, going to release the primary lock. You'll feel pressure at the connection point, starting in 3, 2, 1. Each movement announced, each touch explained, no sudden actions. No assumptions that because she tolerated one proximity she would automatically accept the next. Kethara had stayed still for him, allowed the close work, permitted proximity that she would have violently rejected from almost anyone else. Not because she relaxed or stopped being hypervigilant. Her awareness remained intense throughout the entire repair. But because David's approach gave her the control and the predictability that made the vulnerability bearable. When that repair concluded, Kethara had acknowledged something unprecedented. "You're the only technician I've worked with who made proximity work tolerable instead of threatening. Thank you for respecting boundaries, even while working within them." Now, 6 months later, facing armor damage far more extensive than the previous minor actuator problem, Kethara has made the decision that only David will perform the repairs, not just because his technical work is competent, but because he's proven he can be trusted with the vulnerability that extensive repairs will require. David approaches the damaged armor, beginning his assessment while Kethara stands in the now empty maintenance bay. "Commander, I need to evaluate the full extent of the damage before I can give you accurate repair timeline," David says. "May I conduct close inspection of the armor systems?" "Proceed," Kethara authorizes. David moves around the armor carefully, examining the fractured torso plating, the scorched environmental seals, the breach in the shoulder assembly. His assessment confirms what Chief Engineer Vethros indicated: this is severe damage requiring extensive work. "Commander, this is significant damage," David reports honestly. "The repairs will take approximately 2 hours, possibly longer depending on what I find when I start removing damaged sections. The work will require me to be very close to you for most of that time, closer than the previous actuator repair. Some sections will require removing damaged plating entirely, which means you'll be partially exposed during portions of the repair process." He pauses, making sure she understands the full implications. "You'll be vulnerable while I'm working. The armor won't be providing its normal protection. I'll be accessing areas that most people never see. The proximity will be sustained and intimate in ways that go well beyond the previous repair we did together. Are you certain you want to proceed with just me rather than with the full engineering team that Chief Vethros recommended?" David asks directly. "I can technically perform these repairs alone, but having the full team would be faster and would mean less time that you're in vulnerable position." Kethara's response is immediate and certain. "I'm certain. You're the only technician I trust to work this close while I'm this vulnerable. The full engineering team would be more efficient, but they would also mean 7 people witnessing my exposure, 7 people in my personal space simultaneously, 7 potential threats that I would need to track while unable to defend myself properly. With you alone, I only need to monitor one person," Kethara continues. "And you've already proven that you won't abuse proximity or take advantage of vulnerability. I trust you. Proceed with the repairs." David nods acknowledgement. "Understood, Commander. I'll work as efficiently as I can while maintaining the same communication approach we used before. You'll know what I'm doing at every step." He begins setting up his tools and gathering the replacement components he'll need: spare armor plates, new environmental seals, structural repair materials. While he prepares, he continues talking. "I'm going to start with the torso plating. Those fractures are the most structurally concerning. If they extend further during other repairs, we could have cascade failure. I'll need to remove the damaged sections before I can install replacement plates. The removal process will require releasing the attachment points, while supporting the surrounding structure so additional stress doesn't create new fractures," David explains. "That means I'll be reaching around you to access connection points on your back, while simultaneously supporting the front sections. It's going to be very close work for about 20 minutes while I remove and replace those plates. After the torso, David begins with the torso plating as he described. He positions himself beside Kethara, close enough that she can feel his presence even before he makes physical contact with the armor. I'm reaching toward the primary release mechanism for the damaged torso section now, David narrates clearly. It's located on your left side, approximately at your waist level. You'll feel pressure when I engage the release. I'm moving my hand into position, now. His hand contacts the armor's release mechanism. Kethara feels the pressure exactly where and when David said she would. The predictability, knowing what's coming before it happens, makes the contact bearable rather than threatening. Release engaged, David continues. The damaged plating is going to shift slightly as the attachment points disengage. You'll feel the weight change. It's not going to fall away completely. I'm supporting it, but you'll notice the difference. Releasing in 3, 2, 1. The mechanism disengages. The damaged plating shifts exactly as David described. Kethara feels the weight change but not the sudden exposure that would trigger defensive response, because David's hands are already supporting the section, controlling the movement, preventing anything sudden or uncontrolled. Good, David says calmly. Now I need to access the rear attachment points. I'm going to reach around your back. My right arm will pass close to your right side, approximately at ribcage level. You'll feel my arm near you before I make contact with the armor. Reaching around, now. Kethara feels David's presence as he reaches around her exactly as he described. His arm passes close to her side, intimate proximity that she would never tolerate from most people. But the announced movement and the clear purpose make it acceptable. He's not invading her space casually or carelessly. He's performing necessary work with maximum transparency about what he's doing. Accessing rear attachment point, David narrates. You'll feel pressure on your back, slightly right of center. The mechanism is going to release with small click sound. Pressure, now, release, now. The work continues with the same careful pattern, each movement announced before it happens, each contact with the armor explained, each shift in position or change in pressure described before Kethara experiences it. David removes the damaged torso plating completely, revealing the underlying suit that Kethara wears beneath the armor. It's not full exposure. The suit itself provides coverage, but it's more vulnerability than Kethara shows to anyone outside of genuine medical emergencies or absolutely necessary equipment maintenance. She's partially unarmored, exposed, unable to defend herself as effectively as she normally could, in position where sudden attack or unexpected action could harm her before she could respond. But she doesn't scan the maintenance bay checking for threats, doesn't position herself defensively against the door or the observation windows, doesn't show the hypervigilant threat assessment behavior that normally characterizes her interactions when she's in vulnerable position. She watches David, tracks his movements with intense attention, monitors what he's doing and how he's doing it. But her focus is assessment rather than defense. She's watching to maintain awareness, not preparing to reject attack. The distinction is subtle but significant. She's vulnerable but not defensive, exposed but trusting, monitoring David's actions but not expecting him to exploit her position. David continues the repair work, maintaining his narration. Installing replacement torso plate now. This is going to be heavier than the damaged section was. The new plate has full structural integrity that the fractured one lost. You'll feel the weight settling into position. I'm lifting it into place. Now feel the weight. There, now I'm securing the attachment points. Front connections first, then rear. You'll feel pressure at each point as the mechanisms engage. 20 minutes of meticulous work on the torso plating. David never rushing, never assuming, never taking shortcuts that would save time but would compromise the communication that makes this proximity tolerable for Kethara. When the torso section is complete, David steps back briefly to give Kethara momentary respite from the sustained close contact. Torso plating restored, all structural integrity checks showing green. That section is combat-ready again. He pauses to let her process and adjust before continuing. Moving to environmental seals next. This is going to require very close work around your helmet interface. I'll be working near your head and neck for approximately 30 minutes. It's probably going to be the most uncomfortable proximity of the entire repair because it's such intimate area. Ready to proceed. Proceed, Kethara authorizes, though David can see the additional tension in her posture as she prepares for this more intimate work. David positions himself in front of Kethara, close enough that they're nearly face to face. I'm directly in front of you now. You can see exactly what I'm doing. I need to access the seal housings around the helmet base. That's going to require reaching around your neck area. My hands will be very close to your throat and the base of your skull. I'll be working slowly, and I'll describe every movement. Starting with the front seal housing, David narrates, I'm raising my hands toward your helmet collar. You'll see my hands approaching. They're going to contact the armor at the collar line approximately at the front of your throat area. Raising hands, now, contact in 3, 2, 1. His hands make contact exactly where and when he indicated. Kethara feels the touch at her collar line, proximity that would trigger violent rejection from most people, but David's approach makes it bearable. She can see his hands. She knows what he's doing. She was warned before the contact occurred. Releasing the seal housing, David continues his narration. You'll feel slight pressure, then a small release of tension as the damaged seal disengages. The environmental protection is temporarily compromised. You'll notice the air circulation change slightly. Releasing, now. The work continues with the same meticulous care. David working around her helmet interface, his hands moving near her neck and the base of her skull, performing repairs in areas of extreme intimacy and vulnerability. Kethara stays still, doesn't pull away, doesn't demand distance. Trusts David's careful movements even in this most vulnerable proximity. 30 minutes of work on the environmental seals. Then another 40 minutes on the shoulder breach, removing the damaged assembly, repairing the underlying framework, reinstalling and calibrating the replacement systems. Throughout the entire 2-hour repair process, David maintains the same approach. Announce, explain, give warning, respect boundaries even while working within them. And throughout those 2 hours, Kethara maintains her trust, staying still, allowing proximity, permitting vulnerability, watching David work while choosing to trust his careful movements instead of defending against potential threat. When the final repair is complete and all systems are tested and confirmed operational, David steps back to appropriate distance. Repairs complete, Commander, he reports. All structural compromises addressed. Environmental seals restored. Shoulder assembly fully functional. The armor is combat-ready. All diagnostics showing green across all systems. Kethara runs her own diagnostic confirmation. Her armor's internal systems verifying David's assessment. Everything shows operational. The extensive damage has been completely repaired. She looks at David directly. You're the only person I would have allowed to perform this work. The only technician I trust enough to be alone with me while I'm this vulnerable, while my armor is compromised, while I'm exposed in ways that I never permit anyone to witness. Thank you for respecting that trust, Kethara continues, for not abusing the proximity it required, for maintaining the same careful approach throughout 2 hours of sustained intimate work, for treating my vulnerability with the respect it deserved rather than exploiting it, or dismissing it as irrelevant to the technical work. After Kethara departs with her fully repaired armor, Chief Engineer Vethros approaches David in the maintenance bay. I observed the repair through the bay's monitoring systems, Vethros says without preamble. I needed to verify that single technician approach didn't compromise safety or result in inadequate repairs given the damage severity. And what did you observe? David asks, curious about Vethros's professional assessment. Technically flawless work, Vethros admits. You handled the structural repairs correctly, replaced all damaged components properly, restored all systems to full operational status. The repair quality matches or exceeds what coordinated team effort would have achieved. But more significantly, Vethros continues, I observed something I've never seen in 20 years of working with Commander Kethara. She allowed sustained intimate proximity without showing defensive responses. She stayed still and trusted your movements even when you were working in areas of extreme vulnerability, around her throat, near her head, accessing portions of her armor that leave her partially exposed. She's legendary for violent rejection of proximity work, Vethros says. Most technicians who have attempted repairs requiring close contact with her have experienced difficulties. She doesn't tolerate people in her personal space. The fact that she not only tolerated your proximity but specifically dismissed entire engineering team so that only you would perform the work, that's extraordinary. It's about approach, David explains. I don't just perform technical work efficiently. I treat proximity as requiring explicit consent and continuous communication. I announce movements before making them. I explain what the person will experience. I give them control, including ability to stop the process if it becomes intolerable. That approach takes extra time, David continues, but it creates fundamentally different experience. People aren't subjected to proximity and touch without warning. They're active participants who know what's happening and what to expect. For someone like Commander Kethara, who has strong boundaries around personal space, that communication and control makes the difference between tolerable necessary work and intolerable violation. You've identified something important, Vethros observes. Most of us treat armor repair as purely technical challenge. We focus on efficiency and on completing the work quickly. We don't adequately consider the human, or Thessari, experience of being the person inside the armor while someone is working in intimate proximity. Commander Kethara's choice to clear the room and trust only you, that wasn't just about technical competence, Vethros concludes. It was about recognizing that you're the only technician who has proven you understand and respect the vulnerability that repair work creates. That's a valuable lesson about how we should approach all proximity work, not just repairs for personnel with particularly strong boundaries. Later that day, Captain Marcus Webb, human military liaison who works at the facility coordinating between human and Thessari forces, seeks out David for conversation. I heard about the armor repair, Marcus says, about how Commander Kethara dismissed the entire engineering team and allowed only you to work on her damaged equipment. That's significant trust from someone who is notorious for rejecting proximity work. She trusted my approach, David explains. I've worked with her before. She knows I respect boundaries and maintain communication throughout the process. It's more than just approach, Marcus observes. What Commander Kethara did, ordering everyone else to step back, choosing to be alone and vulnerable with you rather than accepting standard team repair. That was exercise of authority, choosing trust over control. She could have accepted standard protocol, Marcus continues. Could have tolerated the full engineering team working efficiently despite her discomfort with having 7 people in her space simultaneously. Could have maintained control by having witnesses and by accepting the protection that numbers provide. Instead, she cleared the room, Marcus says, lowered her defenses, placed faith in single individual, not because you're the strongest or the most credentialed, but because you've already proven you won't abuse proximity or power. That's leadership choosing trust over self-protection. That's authority making itself vulnerable because the person being trusted has earned that vulnerability. I hadn't thought of it in those terms, David admits. I was focused on the technical work and on maintaining the communication approach that makes proximity tolerable for her. The technical work matters, Marcus acknowledges, but what matters more is what the decision revealed about trust and about authority. Commander Kethara is powerful warrior, legendary for her combat effectiveness and for her absolute personal boundaries. When she orders entire room cleared and chooses to be alone and vulnerable with you, that's profound demonstration of trust. And trust at that level, trust that accepts vulnerability rather than maintaining defensive control. That's the most powerful kind of authority there is, Marcus concludes. Not authority that demands obedience through force, but authority that chooses to trust, that makes itself vulnerable to someone who has proven worthy of that vulnerability. That's real leadership. 3 weeks after the armor repair, David receives formal commendation from Facility Command recognizing his technical work and his professional approach to proximity repairs. The commendation specifically notes Commander Kethara's assessment that his approach demonstrates understanding that armor maintenance serves people, not just equipment, and that respecting the humanity, or the Thessari equivalent, of personnel undergoing repairs is as important as technical competence. But more significantly than the formal recognition, David notices change in how other military personnel approach him when they need proximity repairs. Word has spread about the armor repair for Commander Kethara, about how she trusted him enough to dismiss entire team and be alone during vulnerable repair work. Personnel who previously tolerated proximity work with visible discomfort now specifically request David for repairs requiring close contact. Not because his technical work is superior to other technicians. Several engineers at the facility are equally skilled, but because his approach makes the experience bearable rather than merely endurable. During one such repair several weeks later, a Thessari soldier explains why she requested David specifically. "I heard you're the technician who Commander Kethara trusts. If she trusts you enough to clear the room and be alone with you during armor repair, if someone with her legendary boundaries allows your proximity, then I know I can trust you too. Because the hard part of proximity work isn't the technical repair. It's feeling safe while someone is working that close, while you're vulnerable, while you can't defend yourself. You make people feel safe. That's why we request you." While the human repairs her damaged armor, the alien commander orders everyone else to step back. The damage is obvious: fractured plating, scorched seals, a breach that should have been handled by a full team. Instead, she gestures once, sharp and final. Everyone else is ordered back. Only the human remains. He works close, hands steady, aware of how exposed she is. Each adjustment careful, announced before it happens. The commander doesn't watch the room. She watches him, trusting the space he creates more than the weapons surrounding them. Authority choosing trust over control. Leadership clearing the room, lowering defenses. Placing faith in a single individual, not because they are the strongest, but because they have already proven they will not abuse proximity or power.